Greetings, ASLers. Welcome back to another strategy scenario dissection, whatever you want to call it. We're just gonna call it a breakdown of options we have as ASL players. In this particular case, defending ASL players, and what we need to look for in our scenario. You might recognize this scenario because Neil and Rob have also done a solo replay of this. I won't get into that in this one here. You can dish it out yourself, throw it down, see how it might work, and it will also give you the information you need, and you would practice it in a game setting so you can become familiar with what charts to look up. You could become familiar with the rule sections that you might need to peruse. We'll go over those, but if you run through this one solo, which doesn't take long, especially in my version, it might come off as, oh, this is a different avenue to take. So the reason why I'm doing this one here, and I kind of hate to do overlap of the other guy's stuff, but this is a nice tight little scenario. I vaguely recall this being a tournament scenario of the day. Obviously, it's from the annual 97, and if you get the ASL annual pack from Wargame Vault, this will be included in that. The 97 is the last year the annuals were out. Anyway, I don't really care about that. A lot of those have been tournament scenarios. This one apparently has about 100 playings on Roar, 100 reported results on Roar rather. My apologies. And so it comes out, as Neil points out, as about a 75-25 German victory. And I'm saying, damn, I seem to remember that wasn't too bad a scenario. And then Rob plays it, and he says, it can't be that bad. And Rob gets demolished as well when he's playing solo. I mean, obviously you're trying to play fair to both sides. So, but you kind of know where some things are hidden. But we'll take that into account. So it's like, man, what about the 25 wins? What about those 25 wins? Are we talking, if it's a dog that 25 won in 4 games are solely decided upon dice rolls, or maybe 1 in 4 games are based upon gross mismatch of the players. I did see one game that was recorded in ASL Scenario Archive, which I encourage you to go to and check out and use the great options that are available to you in that on that site. Dave's got a site. He's working hard to always improve it, and takes a lot of work, a lot of effort. So I've been using it more often and been pleasantly surprised practically every single time I pop it open and look for something. So with that in mind, again, the players, the one player that happened to win is the French. I mean, there were a lot of German wins. I didn't really see too many French wins, obviously, because it's a ASL Scenario Archive reporting, but that particular player was rated at least 200 points above his opponent as the French. So skill level does come into play there. I would presume that wasn't a dice fest, but rather, running your tanks up, turning them to a flank, thinking that you can destroy the tank when, after you roll the hit, you look at the kill values and realize that you're up shit creek. That happens. This is a particular game of doing your homework will pay dividends. Neil points this out, Rob points this out, and I'm going to point it out with a little bit of whipped cream and cherry on top. You may not like the results that I come up with, but these results are valid. And you could always say, well, it's part of the rule set, Stu. So there you have it. So getting into this particular game, what do I always hone in for you guys? What is the thing if you know nothing else in the game? Yeah, I don't even know. I can't even see my units if they're green, conscripts, are the Germans, are those Germans, are they Romanians? What type of armor do I have? I have no clue. I can't see anything from this distance on the map, right? So when you whip out your scenario card, and let me pop it up right here. Hamlet's Demise, right? I'm not sure if I mentioned that before. Sorry about that. Hamlet's Demise. Small map, again, I love small map scenarios. They can have a lot of afternoon delight for you guys. But the one thing we need to look at is obviously the victory conditions. So what do we have here? We're going to go over them real quick. Germans win. Remember, it's a German win condition. Now, I was engaged in after I'll read these and I'll digress later. The Germans win at the end of any player turn. If they have amassed 16 or more casualty victory points, CVPs, provided the French have not amassed 20 CVPs. So, interestingly enough, that can occur in the same turn. So that's a very tight window. That's not going to be, oh, the French, killed all my guys, and now I have to hit 16 to counter it. There's no countering here. These victory conditions will happen in the within a 2-player turn session. So actually, it would have to be at the end of the same player turn, to be honest with you. So let's say the Germans, and again, it will be the French that will come back. And looking at the scenario card, the scenario time slot, look at the turns, right? You don't see a half slash at the end of turn 6. Means that if the Germans don't get those victory points at the end of his turn, then he loses. What that does in this case, in this scenario, is if the Germans happen to get their 16 points at the end or during, say, like turn 6, whether it be the first part of turn 6 or the French part of turn 6, that they still have to prevent the French from getting those 20 points. That's what the 16, well, you can't see it here, but so even though the Germans may achieve their victory point total, they still can be counterattacked by the French. And that's a big distinction in this particular game in the victory conditions, whereas the Germans win at the end of any player turn. So typically they'll attack, score a bunch of kills, and be done. Now they could have broken units up on the front line. A tank could be broadside to a 25 millimeter AT gun. Squads can advance, whatever. So that's what gives the Germans a slight advantage. Now, if that was game turn, that would be a big difference, because that would allow the French to, quote, counterattack, although the French really don't have a lot of forces. So deciphering the victory conditions, and I hate going this long, but you gotta hit home. You gotta read the conditions and fully understand how they can be presented to you during the game, right? And again, this could also happen on the flip side. The French could, let's say, quote, counterattack, or during the French turn, say turn 5, start shooting at the Germans and not quite get 20 CVP, but yet in that French player turn, the Germans can counterattack using defensive fire and gets a crit or double shots on the machine guns or what have you, and get those extra little victory points here and there. And the biggest point, we're going to take every little point of this scenario and see how those points will help you decide how to address this scenario. So again, it's a lot of these small scenarios are very subtle in how they approach, or how the players should approach. It's not like, oh, let's get down and play a game of, you know, high card wins. No, this particular scenario is definitely not like that. And so let's get to it. Let's get to the more the scenario card. Again, we have to know what the heck we're talking about. So let's scoot the card up. Again, 6 turns, very short turn. We've looked over the VC, don't care about the balance. Let's squeeze this on here right there. There we go. So, just generically look at the force. How many French squads do you have? How many German squads do you have? 6 Frenchies and 6 Germans. Note that the main German squad unit force is 447s. So, right off the bat, you see that the French can outrange most of the German force. So can we take advantage of that in this scenario? We'll take a look at that. If you can, you'll give your troops a better chance to survive. Just like we did in Men of the Mountains. If we allow the Italians to fire at a 4-hex range versus the returning fire of a 3-hex range of the partisan squad, the Italians will be in a better position. The same thing applies here. Know your troops. 457s. Again, what else do you see on the French OB? One of the first things you should look at is ELR. Are my troops going to stick around? If I fail the morale check, are they going to be stout or are they going to disintegrate into conscripts or green units in the case may be? In this case, look at the ELR. 2. If you fail a morale check, let's say you get a 1 morale check, and most of these German tanks have 8 firepower at minimum, and that will generate a 1 morale check on a 7 dice roll with no modifiers. So a lot of times these 8 firepower tanks will be able to generate a 1 morale check more often than not. So that's very important to note, that the tanks are very mobile. And the other things about the tanks, very small board, very mobile tanks. What does that mean? That means he can get around you. And that's going to be another key point in what we're looking at. Leadership, nothing to speak of. Medium, light, keep that in mind. 25 millimeter, 37 millimeter. And the H39, oh, that's a 12. I've got the wrong counter on there. It's a 12 movement. I'm going to have to change that. So that's a 12 movement factor or movement point vehicle. And so we look at that, and then comparing, since we're fighting armor, what's one of the first things you need to do before you put a counter down, before you think of your defense? What do you need to look at when you're going armor v armor? Obviously, your armaments, can I destroy something? And your armor and your AT gun. How can your AT gun defend? What type of ammunition does that AT gun have? Appears to me that it only has AP. Doesn't have any HE, so it's going to be pointless against the squads. Right? It's going to have a maximum of 1 firepower for AP equivalent or HE equivalent, IFT equivalent, whatever you want to look at. It's not going to be used against, it's not primary usage, and you should not fire on infantry, because if you mouth the gun, then his tanks roam free. It's as simple as that. It's one of the things you probably should not do unless dire straits are upon you. And even then, I would probably hold off. And we'll get to that as well. Well, primary reason why you might want to hold off is simply just to destroy your gun so it can't be captured. And again, that reflects back on the VC. So, Germans. Look what they got. 6 4.47s, 2 4.67s, and an A38. In my opinion, I think the 4.67s are your biggest threat, other than the tanks, in this particular game, because they can, why? They can outrange you. They fire 6-hexes, you only fire 5. The 4.47s, you're not too worried about. The A38's 3 hexes range. The A38 we are concerned with a little bit, and we will focus on the A38, but honestly, it's the flamethrower that's the problem. The flamethrower will be the problem. So, in the armor, take a look at the armor. We've got the Panzer III, 3 armor on front and side. and rear, as long as it's not upper structure hit. Understand what the circle and square means on that particular thing. You can't really see it here, but look at your card. Your Panzer IIF has 3 armor in the front. Again, frontal armor 3, side 1. And your Panzer 1 is going to be a 1 armor all around. So obviously, firing on the side on most of these vehicles, except for the Panzer IIIF, will be obviously a benefit, as it is standard, right? So what are our to kill values based upon that? And just real quick, you just need to look up the kill values. I'm looking at my blue chart, AP to kill table. What does the French have? The French has a 25 millimeter AP. Space to kill is a 7. Is that accurate? Is that an accurate? Is the to kill number we're looking at a 7? You say, Stu, well, it's pretty compact in here. Most shots are going to happen at 6 range or less. So take that into consideration. 6 ranges or less for less than 25, less or equal to 25, is a +1 to kill. So our French AT gun effectively has an 8 to kill value on it. Unless he happens to take a shot through tons of little buildings here and there that he's barely going to have an LOS on. Most of its shots, depending on where you set it up, will be within that bonus range. The enemy doesn't have that. 37s and above. Actually, 20 millimeter has that as a +1, but that's another thing we're going to look at. So the 37 star fires on the exact same chart as the 25 LL, but obviously it only gets bonuses at 2 hex range, as you could tell on your AP to kill tables, which you should have out right now, either on your chart, your E rule book, or your flip charts from the Frontier. So enemy vehicles, 37L. That's going to be really our only concern. 9 to kill, and at 2 hex range, it'll be a 10. But what's the French armor? French, notoriously, to the Germans' demise, to the Germans' dismay, usually have really good armor. So our particular vehicle here, H39, which has the better suspension, I guess, or transmission, has a base 4 armor and superstructure or upper structure bonuses. So you're looking at a 4 armor or a 6 armor, okay? So if it hits the base, and again, we'll get to a way to defend against hull hits. From the 37 millimeter, needs a 9. Let's assume it's not within 2 hexes. And with 4 armor, it will need a 5 to have a damage effect. And then 1 higher than that is a possible shock. We want to kind of avoid that. And how do we avoid that? 37 millimeters, good speed, lots of machine gun fires, ready to fire 2. It's a formidable vehicle. And I'll tell you how you can exactly defend against that. The 20 millimeter from the Panzer II to 20L, 6 is the to kill value. So with its range, it'll probably be 7. Your armor's 4. He will need a 3 or 4 for a game effect. 3, well, essentially 4 or less is a possible shock if it hits the turret. So 20 millimeter, practically worthless. Machine gun, Panzer I, 4 to kill value, even if it's point blank. 1 hex will have 6. It can't scratch you. So you have to ask yourself, why would they put Panzer I in my game that can't scratch my armor? It's an armor fighting vehicle. Armor's supposed to fight armor. Nope. Probably the sole purpose of the Panzer I is to get around and cut route paths to cause units to surrender. That's probably its primary and only focus, and not get destroyed. Obviously, to not give up those free victory points. That's its biggest disadvantage here, is if you destroy it, it's an easy kill with 1 armor. So if you are surrounding people, then you might catch that errant shot from a 25 millimeter. So as a German player, you need to be aware of that. So that's it for the comparison of the armor. Let's take a look at the scenario special rules before I get too long-winded here. Let's go scenario special rule number 1. ECR moderate. Gee, imagine that. It's beautiful in Europe all times of the year. May, it could be hot, but moderate, and I guess they don't fight any other time of year. With a mild breeze, and then from Arata, from the southwest at start. Mild breeze. What does that mean? Why do we give a crap? Why do we need a mild breeze in this scenario? Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look at our force. Let's zoom in here. We're just going to look at the Germans. Why do we care about a mild breeze? Well, you being due diligent and astute ASL players are either going to flip your counters over, or better yet, look them up in the back of Chapter H. Every single game. Failure to do so may cause you to lose the game. Don't blame the dice. Blame your research, right? Look at here. This actually has 2 to kill dice rolls. This one. What does the SD6 mean? SD6, SD7, right? What are those? If you don't know what those are, look them up in the vehicle rules. Those are smoke dischargers. If we have smoke on the map and a mild breeze, it will give us a crap load of cover. So using those units, moving them through our village. Let me just move the scenario special rule over here a little bit. That should be put on the side right here. We can zoom out a little bit from our village. Moving through our village, there's lots of open ground that we need to consider. Moving a tank up here, dropping a smoke, or bypassing, even bypassing. Let me grab one of them. Let's say our vehicle goes up here. And let's say we're here bypassing this hex. Like, Stu, what the hell are you doing in there? You're lost. Well, if we're bypassing this hex here, on that hex side, and we drop a smoke discharger, guess what? So we drop the smoke dispenser. Yes, it's only a 6, but it's free in terms of never being depleted. If you drop it here, guess what? That will drift in the advanced fire phase. And yes, this will be gone soon after that, but at least defensively, this will give you, if you happen to move other units near the dispersion or in the orchard or something like that, return fire is going to be less effective. So even if you kind of park it right here and drop the dispersion here, guess what? You can let it creep down here by being practically immune to all fire. So again, we're not really try not to focus too much on what the Germans can do, because technically the Germans have a giant advantage in this game. But I'm going to show you that they may not have a big as advantage as we might think. So this is actually a great thing to do. Think of situations and timings in which your dispersed smoke can be applied, because you only have one engineer squad, the A38, which is right here on the map, on the OB. It could drop smoke at a 5, but it could only do 1 hex at a time, and it's gone at the end of the movement phase. You drop this in your prep fire phase, it goes on, and then your next prep fire phase, it's gone. So it's out there for a while. You can have a considerable amount of smoke that will help your troops to get up there forward. Obviously, you probably have to put your tanks at risk. Again, that's where the game is, right? Why is that where the game is, Stu? Why do we care about the tanks? Well, again, it's a CVP game. If the Germans get 16, they win. If the French get 20, they win. How many victory points is an armored fighting vehicle in this game? Well, all the ones we have here for the French to score off of are 5 victory points. If you don't know how to calculate that, please go to your victory point calculations in the rules, like chapter A25 section maybe, and read on calculating victory points. You should know this by heart. You should never have to look this up again, especially for vehicles, squads, infantry, things like that. No big deal. Vehicles, big difference. They're essentially variable. So knowing how to calculate that will give you an advantage, especially if you're just looking at the scenario. So each one of these tanks over here on the side is going to be worth 5 points apiece. So for the French to win, if they pop 2 of them, they need 5 other squads to be eliminated or captured. Captured is the key word here. Captured. And so 10, and then 2.5 squads captured is another 10 points. Or a leader is 2 points. 9 minus 1 will be 4 points. So, and that's another reason why we're looking at these 447s. German ELR. What is the German ELR? Because are these guys gods? Are they 4-4? Are they 5 ELR? Nope. Look at that. ELR 3, which means if you pop them with a 1 morale check, if you get lucky, they'll need a 6. That means they'll need a 10, 11, 12. 1 in 6 times, they're going to fail ELR, right? And so they'll be a 436 conscript. Much more easier to capture. Much less of an impact in the game as they can't move as fast. Remember, the Germans are going to be dropping smoke. Does it cost extra to move through smoke? Sure. Conscript units aren't going to move through there that fast. So the 447s are the Achilles heel in the Germans in this one. Although it's most of their force, that's what they have to worry about. Those are probably the ones going to be giving up CVPs. And remember, casualty victory points. Prisoners count double. So what does that mean in terms of prepping for the game? Understand how you can capture units. And how do you do that? By understanding the route rules, by understanding close combat, capturing of effects. Most of the time it will be route rules. But the French, they might have to try to do it in close combat because the French probably won't have the forces to surround the Germans to cause problems. They could cause problems in other ways, and we'll get to that. All right. So, mild breeze to start. We'll come back to this real quick. Place overlay, don't really care. All terrain exists at level -1. Normally, so that means there's a valley. These are actual hills. A lot of times they just negate the valley. Building U4 is a 2-story house. We'll get to this in a second. Bore sighting is not applicable. Why is that important? Because the French, again, if this is a completely unbalanced dog, give the French the ability to bore sight, which means they can hit moving targets with their ordnance weapons and their medium machine gun with a much higher effect. If this is such a dog, why is that a scenario special rule? That should be removed. That should be in the balance. Give them bore sighting. There aren't that many hexes to traverse. Bore sight one of these roads. Bore sight this freaking woods. Bore sight this over here, right? Those are likely places the enemy's going to be moving into. So bore sighting for the French, if it's such a dog, I don't know. Let's think about that. And then the 5th one, 338s are assault engineers. Again, you want to avoid that 838 for multiple reasons. One, simple enough, 8 firepower, and he's going to be with range most of the game. 8 plus 2, 8 plus 1, not happy. Not a happy day for the French. 2, smoke capabilities is out of this world. 3, close combat where he can capture your ass. He will be a 2-to-1 against any one of your units. Let's assume that he doesn't have a leader. He will have a +1 because he's an assault engineer close combat. Don't forget that little close combat rule as I knock over half my crap here. Assault engineers. Well, and +1 in close combat for vehicles. So this bad boy has a 6 to destroy your tank. You don't want to mess with the 838. If you can avoid him, please do so. If you could shoot him down in the streets like the dog that he is, do so. But he is a power to be reconciled with in this particular game. The other thing, flamethrower. Flamethrower is always a problem. We're going to try and address the flamethrower with the French right now. So, Stu, you said you were getting back to the Mild Breeze West start. What did you, as astute ASL players, not read in the special rules? Remember, this is an older scenario. 97 is not that old. I guess it's 12 years after ASL's been out. But it's probably around the time period where the great global warming resistance started to rear its ugly head in ASL for lack of design. I mean, anyway, kindling is not applicable, is not in the scenario special rules. So, when I see a mild breeze, the first thing I'm looking for is, can I burn shit? Right? Stu, that's a sleaze thing. It takes apart the game is broken because of that. Well, yeah, there's a whole bunch of other stupid rules that are included in the game too that aren't taken out. But kindling is not taken out in this particular game. Again, you can have kindling in a game without destroying the game if you're a semi-competent designer. Instead of just blanketing, oh, no kindling, you can't burn anything. There are times you want to burn terrain. And you're not burning down cities. You're burning down a small portion. You want to either, A, why wouldn't you burn something in mild breeze? It will give you smoke, especially if you're retreating. There's no reason why you wouldn't do that. Look at fighting withdrawal. Oh my God. I mean, that in and of itself just goes to show you the effect of curtailing the movements. The very first scenario in ASL essentially already has the fires burning with you with a mild breeze. And it will spread because of the mild breeze. So that is what we're looking at here. Say, Stu, how are you going to incorporate kindling in your game? Well, you have to know limitations. Comparing to probably all the other games, in this particular scenario, we need to deal with our setups. Where do you think most of the French will set up? Oh, and we'll go over this board here. So let's go over this building here real quick, because this is part of setup. Okay, the scenario is done. We're done looking at the scenario. That's gone. Okay, now let's look at our building right here. This is a, what do they call it? Two-story house. So the first thing you have to do is understand how that two-story house comes into play. Okay, is this a split-level building? Is it a two-story house or what? So two-story house means there's 2 stories on each floor. So that means this one has a level 1 and this one has a level 1. Otherwise, it would be defined as a split-level building. Say, Stu, what the hell's the difference? Well, a split-level building would only have a ground level in V3, which then is only accessible to the first level here in U4, and then you can go down. So it actually only has 3 locations within the building. The 2-story house allows it to have 4 locations. Why is that important? How does that change things? Well, let's rotate the board as we can in TTS. This is the first level. You're in the valley. How does that affect anything? To be honest with you, it's terrible. You're not going to see it over any terrain. And these buildings, this is going to be a key point that you have to understand in your lines of sight. These buildings are essentially walls to units that are on first level, or in this case, ground level. So looking over these particular lines of sight drawn from here to over here, it's going to hit this, and this is a 1.5 level obstacle. You know, firing at the open guys over here, 1.5 level obstacle. You can't see them. So this particular location, not so good. We're just going to leave that off. This one here, however, how does this differ? Stu, how does that differ? It's level 1. It's the same damn thing. Well, not really. You are base level is automatically 1 above the valley, right? Let's scoot back a little bit. Now, if you add another level to that, in comparison to the valley floor, you are a second level building. So what does that do for you? Right? Well, if you have a medium machine gun, let's take, for instance, a medium machine gun, and this could be a possible. I'm not saying you have to settle up here, but I'm just saying it could be a possibility. This medium machine gun obviously has line of sight to every single one of these hexes over here. We got lines of sight to all this stuff on top level. Maybe not the building over here. Okay. What else do we have lines of sight to? We have lines of sight to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All this crap over here. And this will block. So that will block. We probably only have lines of sight here back. Okay. Definitely approaches. So what's that mean? It means he covers the entire open ground area over here. Does it need to do that? Meh, but it does have an option. The most important thing is that has lines of sight 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It doesn't have a line of sight to here, but it does have a line of sight to here, and here, and here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And guess what? This will block all lines of sight to lower levels, but it will have a line of sight. And if we trace line of sight from here, remember, the Germans got to move fast. To there, is that a clear line of sight? If we're going to fire on a bypassing units on either hex side, a unit is bypassing this hex, which it may very well do. Why? Because that's his entry point. He's going to enter here, run by this. He might bypass this, right? And go on his merry way. Enter the woods, go bypass, enter, bypass, enter, bypass, and double time to here. Key spot. Could he enter here? Absolutely. But if he's bypassing over here, he's not going to the center of the board. If he's not going to the center of the board, he's not going to be able to react to our defense. You want to cut through the board, enter the village, and destroy everything. Right? We'll get to these in just a minute. So, can we see this? See, Stu, I don't know. I don't know. Were you playing TTS? There's not going to be a line of sight thread telling me if it's blocked or not. I am not so sure. I'm questionable about that. Well, remember, 5 to 9 hexes. If you have a height advantage over an obstacle, adds a blind hex. How far is it to our building? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's within 5 to 9. This building here will add another blind hex. So a typical spot will have a blind hex here. Let's say this is, this is not going to be blind because it's straight up, but if it crosses here to N4, which is probably our primary spot, right? If we want to fire there, if we're anticipating movement there, we want to fire there. Can you see that location? Well, let's get a little closer. Right? So 5 will add an extra blind hex. So here's the obstacle. This is the normal blind hex area from a particular individual at a higher elevation. And this is the extra one. So if you're looking at line of sight this way, line of sight this way, or line of sight that way, all 3 of these hexes, if it hits that building, will be out of LOS. Okay, so if you anticipate his move, bypass and fire on him here, you're going to be not so happy after your opponent says, oh, by the way, that line of sight is blocked. And he has like an 838 flamethrower, 2 squads, 9-1. Everything is flowing, right? So, but guess what? Tracing fire. I don't want that. Tracing fire to here's blocked. But here, guess what? Where's that? Why is that not blocked, Stu? Why? Is because you're firing at these hexes. You're firing at a range of those hexes. So both of these hexes is 3 past our blocking obstacle. Blocked, blocked, clears a bell. Okay. Over here, can't see anything because of the orchards. But guess what he's going to do? He's going to be bypassing up the woods or just trudging here, going through the orchard. May, June through October, the orchards might not be there. Maybe June through October is the orchards. So doesn't really matter too much. You'll pop my open ground over here. So not a bad spot for the medium. Again, I'm not saying that's the best spot for it, but that's something to look for. And again, when you're looking for something like that, what target are you going to be prioritizing? Leaders and the flamethrower. I don't care who's carrying the flamethrower, leaders or the flamethrower. So we know we can't hit Nancy 4 right here. We could hit practically all other hexes, and we can hit this hex, that hex, and this hex side, right? And these hexes up top. Damn it. And these hexes up top. So we almost have the side cover for the flamethrower. What about the other side? That's where your other item might come into play. You might consider LMG here, maybe LMG here, right? Why do we have an LMG here? Because our medium covers the right side of the board, and our light, we really don't care about the squad. We only put it on a squad so that we have 2 forms of fire instead of just a half squad. So again, he can also try to sleaze freeze us, just overrun us in the open ground. Might not be the great thing to do. So here's a big option. But again, if we have this hex covered here and he knows it, because he's astute, he might come this direction and come to this location. If that's the case, we could try to get to a better location, either N7 again, which he can sleaze freeze, or you could put him back over here, which would be a better location for you to put that unit. Think about that. We have cover here, sleaze freeze potential. We have no cover here, overrun potential, right? We both can cover N5. We're going to blast the flamethrower, blast the flamethrower, blast the flamethrower, and we have line of sight to that, blast the damn flamethrower. He's not getting past our open ground hexes. If the flamethrower comes on the left-hand side, we blast him over here. If he comes on the left-hand side, we love it. Why? Nothing's going to be in range over there. If the flamethrower comes over here, laugh at him. Say, good, bring it on, baby. Bring it on. Flamethrower moves up here. Guess what? Oops. Oopsie. He can't even see you. And guess what? No range. So this would be the best case scenario for the French. For him to be bringing the flamethrower over here. Because you know that you're going to have anything over here. The only place this flamethrower is going is in the town. So if you can cover the approach to the town, then you have a huge advantage. You're only going to get literally 1 shot at it, right? But a 2-1, again, that's where the smoke comes involved. That's where the smoke dispensers come involved as the Germans. Knowing what you have to protect our flamethrower is key. Because guess what? Once we hit the flamethrower here or the flamethrower here, this is where you do not want that damn flamethrower. Because it's got range to all of our hexes that we most likely will probably have at least 1 guy in. So that's a problem. All right. Let's quickly go to the defense of the village. So I'm going to put him up here. Again, let's go back. Not done with this guy. So flamethrower comes over here, we're fine. Let's say a tank comes over there. Let's say a 20 mil. 20 comes on. 1, 2, 3. Let's say the open top first. 1, 2, 3. Spins 4, 5. Jumps up here for 5 plus a quarter. Let's just say that's the rest. And he overruns us over here. Do we really give a shit? See, Stu, you give him away. That's like a 8-1. He's going to be broken. And you said, you know, if he changes his turret to be like this way, come over this way, or straight, we can't route. We're going to be in world of hurt. Yeah, you're right. You are correct. But guess what? If he overruns you here, what do you have in your OB that will help defend against that unit? And again, you must layer your defense. Layered defense here is important. One, you have a medium machine gun. And say, Stu, that's not an anti-tank weapon. The hell it's not. Early war, 1 armor. You know, it's not the best, but a 2 or 3 on the to kill table will definitely make it difficult for that tank to continue. And guess what? You're going to have a 25 millimeter. And with our defense, I'm going to switch this tank here real quick. There we go. Let's say you put your tank here, and let's say you put your 25 millimeter, you know, let's just say right here. It's probably going to be blocked, but let's just say 25. Let's say the tank is down here. 25 is right here. This would be a dumb spot for it, but just for shits and giggles. So we're going to have our anti-tank capability somewhere that's going to cover this, right? Because that's a good spot for the tanks to show up, drop smoke, advance across. Now, he comes exactly where we want him to be. Most likely, you could probably want to go here to cover that way. So that's going to be a side shot. It's, what is this? What are we trading? Let's say this unit is eliminated. That's 2 points. We actually want him to overrun us and eliminate us because he won't capture us. So, we lose 2. Pow. Remember, what's our to kill on our 25 millimeter? Look it up if you forgot. I forgot. It's a 7. We have 1 armor there, makes it a 6. We have 1 + 1 for the kill because of the range, makes it back to a 7. You roll 7 or less, that thing's going to be stunned, immobilized, or destroyed. Straight up. You roll 7. If you can't roll 7, you're going to be war hurt anyway. So, even though that unit looks like it's very vulnerable, and it very well could be, then this unit can be destroyed. Let's say if it ran like this, then we have to route. We can route this way because none of his guns are pointing that direction. He can't interdict us, right? So we could go there, here, and there for free. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. We could route to here. And guess what? Let's say a German unit was over here in this building. We could route down. 1, 2, take interdiction because, you know, and we'll get into that right now. Take interdiction because you don't want to low crawl. You're just going to die. Take interdiction, and then we can avoid going to S8, so we continue over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can't reach anything else, so we could just essentially kind of come up here if we wanted to. 5, 6 in the route because we're already down at the lower level. So, row houses. French defense in the middle of the town. If you're going to defend in the middle of town, where are you going to break and route to? You're going to go here. You're going to go here. You're probably going to end up here. You might end up here, right? Let's just get rid of this LMG. Right? You're going to end up here. You're going to have to route. Let's get a DM. There we go. Got our DM going. You're going to have to route. One thing the Germans have a lot of are troops. Most likely, he will have 237s. His 447s will be deployed. Many of these guys, maybe 2 of them, will be deployed. Let's go with a state number 2, clone this guy. Let's say he's got 1 guy there, 1 guy here. That's a reasonable position for him to be in. Very reasonable, right? So when this unit tries to route, remember, all buildings, you know, are trouble. In this case, they're trouble. Row houses defense, the row houses are better to attack from than to defend from. Why? When you break, you have to route. When you route, this is going to be 3 movement factors. Technically, this could be a route destination as well, 3 movement factors away. So, Keep that into consideration. It's not the closest in hexes, it's closest in movement factors. So if you should happen to have guys right here, you don't have to route here. You say, hey, that's 3 movement factors. This is also 3 movement factors. And this is most likely blocked. Actually, if it's not blocked, it doesn't matter. Because you could route here without interdiction and therefore not be subject to surrender. So you could route over here. Does that save that unit? Not really, not for the time being. The Germans have enough units to really chase down any broken guys. And that's the key point, is as we continue to break, you know, our German force is going to continue to advance, right? This is turn 2, turn 3. When we break here, no one's going to rally him, right? Let's say we got our LMG with us too. No one's going to rally this unit. Our 8-0 is not going to, that's not our rally center. Our rally point's going to be in the back here. You know, this guy's dead. And most likely what's going to happen next turn? We're going to move a 237 here and a unit behind him. Or a unit up here. That's all you really need to do. And then he surrenders. Guess what? That's 1/4 of the Germans' victory points right there. 1/4. We want to avoid this. So to avoid that, right, let's say the Germans are spread out, they're approaching, and you're routing. You are never low crawling in this game. I don't think low crawl is your best bet. Low crawl is 1 hex. Okay, that's exciting. He advances. Right? Now you still surrender. And there goes 4 victory points. What are you doing instead? You're taking interdiction whenever you can. Why? Because you're not going to pass. 6 morale, you want to break to only give him 1 victory point. Let's say interdict is here, he gets 1 point, and let's say you make it over here to where? Probably your rally center point, right? He'll have a lot lower, he might have a 5 morale, I'm not sure what it is for a house squad. Let's see, state 2, yep, 5. He's still not going to rally in that. But if he gets fired upon again, where's he going? Nearest cover. Nearest cover is any one of these probably. So it's 4, 6. He'll lose his DM status and then be a 6 to rally eventually. He might be up by the end of the game. Okay? But that's why probably if you were to look at the history, again, that's where the log file strength comes in. If you create log files, upload them to the archive. Nobody else is collecting them. I kind of do, but I don't have a public forum that the archive has. Upload it to the archive so we can see the gameplay. Yes, we're going to see your terrible play. Yes, we're going to see you screw up a route. Yes, we're going to see you dominate with your snake eyes over and over again from Vasalbot. We're going to see all that shit. But what we will see is that your defense in the middle here is total garbage. That's what we will see. And so when we play this in a tournament or any other setting, there's nowhere for the French to go here. You are surrounded by a road. The German literally has to park a tank here and park a tank here, and all that road network is covered. This tank in the back, I mean, you could bypass here, you could bypass this location, whatever, or be a man and drive in there. Hold down over here, right? Pretty defensible, covering the whole road. Any French units right here will just funnel in there, and they'll plug up right down here and start surrendering to all the German units right next to them. And you will lose if you lose 2 squads to surrender and a leader, that'll be 10 out of 16 points. Guess what? Destroy this vehicle, and that'll be 16 out of 16 points. So if you put anybody in the village, any considerable force in the village, mind you, and the tank gets destroyed, that's the end of the game. That's why you see a 75 to 25 difference. Now, let's get to the crux. If you made it this far, congratulations. You get to try to win this scenario. All right. Knowing what we know about the scenario victory conditions, about the flame, we're not even going to go about counter placement because I'm going too long. In my opinion, the tank, maybe bypass him here. Again, let's put this gun up here. I'm just gonna put the machine guns, I think, have to be either anti-tank or anti-flamethrower only. Do not fire on infantry with your machine guns. You don't have a ton of AT capability, and what you have isn't spectacular. It's viable, but it's not spectacular. Let's get rid of all these. ATRs, not really concerned about the ATRs. They're just interdictions. So our 25 millimeter, let's just say we put it here. Solid spot. It's in the middle. It's not great for frontal shots, but what option do we have? Do we put it over here? Can't really see anything. Do we put it here? In my opinion, if you have the medium machine gun up top here and he doesn't get broken, which again is probably going to be out of range of our 447s, you have a viable spot that the Germans will not approach this side over here, especially going to be giving our setup that I'm going to show you here. They might ignore that side. They might not, but if they're going here, they're probably going here. You're not going to want that to happen. So here, not the greatest. Again, most of these, you might have some frontal shots over here. So this position here, I don't know. You'd have to determine, but the only thing it is deterrent. That's essentially, this unit is hidden. It's a deterrent for the Germans. So if you don't see this unit on the map and you see this tank right here, it's going to be bypassing. Which hex do you want to bypass, gentlemen? Do you want to bypass S7? Let's zoom in. Do you want to bypass S7 or the S8 hex side? Will your cover arc be different for either of those shots? For either of those positions? Will your cover fire be exactly the same? The answer to that is yes. If you don't understand that, please go see Bypass Vehicle Covered Arc and what it covers, and then you will be enlightened and say, oh, I see that. Now, I say we go into S8. S8 does two things. One, if infantry are going to be coming up and charging us, right? We got, let's say, infantry on the side, and we're outside the covered arc, and we just go boom. Guess what? We can't enter this low hex because that hex has a tank in it. Now, if this tank were on this side, right, we go 1, 2. Why can we do that? Is because, well, level 1 guys, not this one, but other level 1 guys can't see past our, quote, wall that we have right here. So this unit can pretty much go for free, enter our stone building, which we're not going to be able to defensive fire him out of it, most likely, right? And then, guess what? We're going to jump into close combat. So, if we're here, he has to stop outside that hex. And guess what? If we had one of our 6 squads here with a half squad here, we're looking at 4 -2, 2 -2 shots. Before there's no chance of him getting to the stone building, inside the stone building in his movement phase. And if he fails the pre-FE task check, he doesn't get to move in. He stays out in the open even longer. And what does that mean for us? If these break and die, that means we get part of our 20 victory points. And we got 5 on top here after destroying that vehicle. This vehicle is blown up here. Let's just say this guy routed over here. Okay. There's 5. Let's just say we get 4 more. That's 9 points. We're halfway there. Right? We're halfway there. So, again, the second point. Why don't we want to be in S7? Priorities. The number 1 priority happens to be right here. Flamethrower. If we are bypassing this hex, we are in range of the flamethrower. If we are bypassing that hex, even though we're on the same vertex, we are outside of the range of the flamethrower. What does that mean? He needs to cross the street. How's he going to do that? Smoke dischargers, assault engineer, dash, you name it. He's going to move across, advance, assault, whatever. And then he could flame it at that point. Okay? This, no go. This, same covered arc. And guess what? Because you're at this covered arc focal point, your fire attacks will throw your opponent off like a bitch. right? If you are in this hex, which you could set up in that hex, can you see any of these units over here? Let's say you want to bypass, you're over here. You want to bypass the locations down through here, okay? You could probably see this hex point here, but you could bypass this, right? Enter the building, and then enter this building, right? But you put it on the hex side, your vertex, your LOS, is being drawn from here, right? If it bypasses 06, all those are cleared. That's blocked, right? 06, especially right there, in 06 is a clear line of sight. Say, Stu, there's no way. That's bullshit. It's outside its covered arc. Yes, it is if he is bypassing 05. 05 is going to be outside the covered arc of this unit here, but 06 is not. So 06 is within that covered arc. Take it even further. So if we were to set up an S7, then guess what? Now the same thing would apply, right? The covered arc would be here, but you'd be more vulnerable. So, and what else can we cover? We can take our coverage here. I think this is it right here. It's about right there. 07 probably blocked. This clears a bell. Look, we got some bypass hexes here. You might be able to pop, right? L8 might be a line of sight. That hex back there might be in line of sight. Let me get off this. Right? The entry hex. Let's see you bypass that entry hex. Can we see that? Nope. But K6 pretty much is a line of sight. Your lines of sight will not be standard. So, again, as a defender, try to take advantage of that. And guess what? We get to use our two-factor machine gun. Why is that important? Is because it supports our other machine guns. It gives us an extra firepower. Be able to use that when you can. It won't do much against units in buildings, but once it enters non-building hexes, you're good. Again, another spot. Up here might be good. Up here might be good. Why? 2 machine gun factors. 2-2. Good to go. Keeps the tanks up off the hill. Keeps the tanks focused over here. If the tanks are afraid of coming over here, what do you think you have set over this region he has to worry about? You probably have an AT gun over here. You don't have to, but you probably have an AT gun over here. Most likely, most players will put it up over here. Most likely here. And he'll probably believe that. Down here might actually be a little better in case he wants to dash across. He bounces. And when he bounces, machine gun rips him a new one. It leaves residual firepower there. Or you spray fire and you leave residual firepower in both hexes. So that's effective. And then obviously you're probably going to cover T4. So he'll probably think your AT gun is over here and then start sending infantry up. Be aware of that. He sees your tank. He doesn't see your gun. At that point, if you have something like this, you're only getting one shot with the AT gun there because he'll have his other troops up in the front by this time. And one shot and you're done. And when he captures that gun, 4 victory points. We want to avoid the victory points. So how do we avoid giving him the points? Again, look at it as if you were capturing buildings. If you're capturing buildings that say, all multi-hex buildings are worth 2 victory points at the end of the game. Well, where are they? One's here, one's here, one's here, one's here, and one's here. 2 victory points for each guy at the end of the game, right? Where's he going to go? He's going to attack here. He's going to attack the center. He's going to take this hex, that hex, and he wins because he has 6 out of the 8, majority. Let's just say it's a majority of VC. What are the VC in this game? What are you protecting or should be protecting or preventing the Germans to get? Very simple. It's the simplest form of a game. Your units. How do we defend our units in this game? Well, again, understanding the rules and understanding the scenario special rules, there is kindling allowed. Guess what we're going to do? What can't the Germans probably do on turn 1 and maybe turn 2? They probably can't defensive fire on us if we're up in these locations up here. Okay? So, this is what the setup's going to be very similar. This guy's going to be hidden. You're going to have a tank over here. The tank might be over here, depending on where you set these guys up, to defend the tanks, because the tanks, he's going to see your setup, so he's going to fly up on top of this hill to blast those guys. He may not know what you're going to do, but he's going to try and get up here to blast your guys, right? This unit right here is pretty much protected from all the upper level locations. Why? Well, because we know our lines of sight. If he makes it up to here and he fires this way, that'll be clear. This unit here, firing that way, blocked. Why? This is a 1.5 level obstacle. He makes it to the trees, blocked. Under the tank, blocked. This guy over here, kind of looks clear. It's tight, clear. So that's a priority defense X, right? So, but he has to get units up there. Can he get them up there? Oh, sure. But, knowing the kindling rules. How do we do the kindling, Stu? What the hell are we talking about? Let's pop up this. Kindling numbers. So, what's the easiest thing to burn? We need to burn stuff, and what we need to find out the easiest stuff to burn, because if it's hard to burn, it's not going to work. Not going to work. Easiest thing on the table. Wooden building, stone building. Again, with this defense, could you put a guy here? Absolutely. You could kindle right here and start burning this. That might be a completely viable option. You might be throwing these guys away, but again, you're going to route in terms of 1, 2, 3. You're going to take interdiction and lose the VC instead of going here. You're going to route and take interdiction. So, but let's just, for shits and giggles, we're going to select these locations, and I'm going to tell you why. Kindling, stone, wooden building, 7. Need a 7 for this. Do we have any other modifiers? Say, Stu, EC, dice roll modifier. Oh, shit, doesn't apply. So it could be pouring down rain. EC is -12. Doesn't affect the wooden buildings. You need a 7 on your task check to light that on fire. Okay? So, prep fire phase comes. You get to attempt to kindle. Leader must pass a normal task check. Again, 8, easy to do. If you roll an 8, it's success. So we have a how much of a chance to succeed in that? Let's check our little dice probabilities. We need to roll an 8 or less. That's a 72% chance that he's going to find his matches for both of them. 72% chance. One of these guys is eventually, if not both, one of these guys is going to have the ability to start torching stuff. Again, you might put a guy here to stop guys running straight down the road. And that's where the LMGs come in, right? The other guy's gone. No, here it is over here. You could set some sacrificial lands up here to slow him down. LMG here, fire lane, right? You might want to pop a fire lane. The medium, light, doesn't matter. Just to stop. Or that's also an anti-tank weapon, right? Hell, you could put your AT gun. You could put your AT gun in this building as well. Right? Because he's going to have it free over here. He can just park his tanks here. Guess what? Point blank. Especially that's going to be side shots on this guy frontal. Right? Or you put the guy here. If anywhere, viable spot. One thing to note, the AT gun is most likely going to be destroyed. You want to destroy it and remove it from the game. You do not want it to be captured. Stu, how do you destroy your tank? How do you destroy your AT gun? Why would you do that? You might want to do that in defensive fire phase. Probably not your prep fire phase, because he can't react as easily, maybe. Because you could probably destroy him. In defensive fire phase, maybe. It depends on what the situation is. But you can outright just destroy that weapon. Either mouth it or destroy it. Guess what? Does he get victory points? Yes. 2. He doesn't get 4. He's going to get victory points in this game. You prevent the massive victory point gain. Both the crew and the gun, 2 points each. Captured, easy to do. 8 points. That's half of his points in 1 unit. So putting it up here may be risky, but you could probably get back. Putting it here, a little less risky, but still risky. But again, you can destroy it and just move your crew back. Okay. So what's the plan, Stu? We torch these things up. That's fine. We get a 7 for the wooden building. We could roll a 7 because we're not too incompetent. Right? And again, you might want to deploy one of these guys at the beginning of the game. If not, you can have 2 squads there. Why do you deploy? Well, it gives you another roll. Right? When you kindle, you get a roll per squad. Right? Or not per squad, per multi-man counter. Or single-man counter for that matter. So, but if this unit directs, he can't kindle. So he's going to be directing the fire. And you have to be pre-designate them. You simply become prep fired. You simply become prep fired. And TI, but we're not worried too much about TI. Prep fired. Might we break? Sure. But we have a wooden building, 7s here, 7. Down here and down here. Those will need, because they're half squads, they'll need 8s. So we need 1 7 and 2 8s. Can you do that? Pretty much you can. And guess what? They stack. If you flame on this guy. All right, just rearrange them so we can get a little bit more of the map on the screen instead of all that green crap. So, need 7s and 2 8s here. We'll probably get 2 of those. So what'll happen? 2 flames go into the building. The woods, a little bit more difficult to do. You can see here, woods need a 9. We'll need 1 of these buildings, 1 of these guys to roll a 9. Again, looking back at our probabilities, a 9 on the flip side is going to be a 27% chance, almost a 30% chance of hitting that. So we got about a 50-50 shot of putting a flame here. Not too bad. But again, that position is a little more protected from fire. So if we fail this turn, we could try next prep fire phase. Again, does he think that you're going to be setting flames and charge you? Probably not. He's probably going to turn 1. He's probably going to have these dudes here. He's probably going to, again, he doesn't know where your AT gun is. Your sniper's going to be over here somewhere. He's going to be pushing some guys up. He might CX some guys across the street. Don't know. You're going to take a shot with your guy that you had up here, or maybe he overran him. You know, depending on how he goes, it might look something like this. Turn 1. You attempt your flames and he says, shit, he's going to burn everything. And then turn 2, even if he just charges, he gets to be about right here. Again, at that point, this guy's defended. Right? And you have your tank defending him as well. So any tanks that want to come up here and interdict this person in terms of doing what he needs to be doing, the tank is popping shots at these guys. I think there's a, oh yeah, they're 1 armor. These guys are garbage. Garbo. So if you think he's going to do that with your tanks, put your gun over here. I don't know where we did with the gun. Put the gun here. Right? Maybe put the tank there as well. Put the gun there. 3 rate of fire. Kill them both in 1 turn. Right? Let's say we get 1 of these. Right? So we have 2 flames. At this point, we let nature do its thing. We can either defend over here, this side, maybe go over here. Right? We start going where we normally might want to go. Where is our defense center? Our defense center is back here. Primarily these 2 hexes, and if not, just W6. Just W6. Why W6? Say, Stu, that's in the middle of nowhere, right? 1, it's easy for the Germans to get to it. It's a path. It could, high mobility, right? W6 is defendable. Now what do we want to do? We, again, let nature take its course. Let's get rid of the dice probabilities. because we already have our numbers going. And let's get rid of our kindling because we kindled. Remember, there's a difference between kindling and spreading. Kindle, get rid of. We're done. Spreading. This is what we need to look at next. Okay? We have 2 flames. They have to spread. They have to burn into flames. So spreading fire. Wooden building is an 8. Woods is a 7. So, it's easier to start a flame in the wooden building, but it's more difficult to spread to it. On the flip side, the woods are more difficult to start, but once it starts, it's easier to burn. So guess what we have? The wind direction. +2, +1, +1. Let's use what's in the scenario special rules to our advantage. Spreading fire +2, spreading fire +1. Going backwards, -1. Not good. You could also start this building on fire because it will spread uphill, which will cancel the winds. Anyway, spreading to U5. Let's get our spreading window back up there. Yeah, I hear you cursing at me. Stu, you're a sleaze monster. Well, I'm just using the rules, people. I'm just using them rules. Let me see. Spread. There we go. Let me reduce this a little bit. Okay. We got our fire here in U6, right? Spreads to U5. What is that? It's not higher elevation, not lower elevation. It's not directly attached. We have a -2. Right? We have a -2 for the not directly attached. No fortified building. EC dice roll modifier. Happens to be moderate, so it's 0. Wind direction, if mild, +1. So that means we have a net -1 to spread. Guess what? It's woods. We need an 8 for it to spread to woods. Let's say we roll the spread. 8 there. What do we need to spread to V5? Directly downhill or downwind. Not downhill, downwind. +2 for that. Not directly attached. -2. Fire going to woods is a spreading fire dice roll. Every advanced fire phase is a 7. We need a simple 7. And it spreads there. Same thing here. This is a 7. Okay. This could also spread from here. This V6 is eligible to spread from both locations. What you do is you choose the value that is the highest. You do not get multiple rolls. You choose the value that is the highest and you apply it. One roll, it spreads. Down here where our guys are, what's this modifier? It is attached. And we have the wind dice roll. So guess what? This is a 6. You need a 6. This goes there. It's like a grain. At that point, you say, oh, shit, let's back up a little bit. We can back up here, right? Let's say the Germans are making their way over here. Let's say we destroy our AT gun, give them 2 points. Germans are coming over here. You know, maybe we got a tank. We're going to come up this way. Let's say that this tank is backed up here, or you could back them up into the woods just so the infantry can't get close. You can maybe put them here so the infantry can't advance in that or just move in that location, or it might be destroyed. Let's say it's destroyed. 6 points for the bad guys. 8 points for this. And let's say he's got this squad dead as well. So he's got 10 points already. He needs 6 more points. Guess what? Flame, flame, flame. This catching fire needs a 7 for the woods. Remember, and we have smoke too as well. I'm not really including the smoke. Let me find the smoke. Let me find the smoke. It's here all along. Remember, blazes will have smoke downwind. So we're going to have dispersed smoke here and here and all through here. So all that would be smoked. Not really going to have a lot of fire coming out. What you could do then to counter that is have your units a little bit out. Do we care if these units break? Let's say this gun is destroyed. We've got these guys here. This guy makes it here. We got that. Boom, boom, boom. The Germans are assaulting, right? Germans are coming in hard and fast. Again, this is what you have to think about. What the Germans can do to stop you. Germans fire. and you go, oh shit, I just caught my pants down. This is going to be an 8 firepower in the advanced fire phase. Let's say we break. We're going to route back. Boom. We're just going to route 2. And let's just say we route 3. Let's say these guys break. He goes 1, 2. This guy. We're just going to stay right here. Why are we going to stay right there? So in case our flame doesn't work, he just doesn't run straight through us. Let's say he survived. So we could advance him back, keep the broken unit there. And then, do you see what's happening back here? We're getting kind of tight, right? Same thing happens over here. We fire, boom, 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 right? Oops, got to go back. Let's say one guy broke. And looky there, we're overstacked, aren't we? But with this defense, you don't care. You can leave the leader there so he can't just waltz into there. Matter of fact, you could probably do that, depending on your victory points. Because the only thing you're hoping for is a 7 here, and a 7 here, and another 7 right here. So you roll a 7. Spreads. Remember, every advanced fire phase, every turn you're rolling twice. And I'm all out of flames. That's how effective it is. Clone this. Let's say we go to another flame in here. Let's say it didn't spread there, but it didn't blaze there, but we got a spread. And then let's say this one blazed up. This one, let's say it blazed up. Now we've got one spot for the Germans to be able to punch through. It can't go through over here, and can't really use his tanks unless he wants to run his tanks into the woods. If he gets bogged and burns up, he's dead. Okay, so this happens. Again, this might be turn 3 or so. This probably isn't turn 3. But essentially what it boils down to is you're going to end up in 1 hex. Overstacked or not, doesn't matter. Say, Stu, how do you stop from getting torched and burned alive? So we have 3. Let's zoom down there. We're going to remove this thing right here. Boom. So, end game. Remember, it's a short game. You got blazes. Let's say he comes over here. Let's say this guy dies. This turns into blaze. Can't get to us now. These units can do nothing. Can't get to us now. We come through here. He's fighting 1632. We're overstacked by a full squad. 32 plus 1. Yeah, that's a demo charge. That's a demo charge shot and at least 12 residual firepower. Could he do that? Sure, he could possibly do that. Absolutely. He has to do that. Does he want to face a 32 chart? Maybe not. At that point, he may have to drive his tank twice in there to get close to you. But again, that's where the defense comes in. We do another flame blaze. Let's just say it blazes here. It flames in there and then blazes, right? Let me clone this. I guess I could just clone the same thing. And let's just say flames start appearing in our hex here. Say, Stu, you're just going to burn yourself up. Again, knowing the flame rules, let's look at the last chart that we need to stay alive. It's suppression. So during the movement phase and defensive fire phase, you can start suppressing flames in your location. If you should happen to have multiple flames in your location, right? By reading the rule, if more than one flame counter exists in a location, each must be cleared separately with its own separate dice roll. Although all extinguishing units, which all these guys are extinguishing units, may attempt to put out each flame. So even if you roll poorly on the first flame suppression, everybody gets to roll for each flame. So if you get 2 in there, you're not going to burn. How do we burn? How do we stop that from happening? Get rid of that. Get rid of that. It's a clearance. Flame. Do you see the clearance attempts? Clearance by squad. -1. So there's the single man counter won't matter. -1 for him per extra half squad crew, or -2 per extra squad. -1, -3, -5. There's crew, -6, -7 to the dice roll. Per dice roll. Okay. Labor status counts, EC count. -1 to be -5. Gee. What do you need to hamper it? A 7. What do you need to clear it? A 3. Subtract 5 from all those rolls. You roll a 12. This is pinned. 12, pinned. 12 or less, pinned. 12, pinned. All of the flame, and you put a pin marker on this as well, by the way. All the flame gets suppressed and cannot then go into a blaze. Right? And you get to do that in the movement phase and the defensive fire phase. So you get to do that every turn, because guess what? As ASL follows rules, pins are removed at the end of the movement, of the end of the turn. So these flames will then become active in the next turn. Say, hey, Stu, you're going to die next turn anyway. Who cares? But your flame removal can occur on each player turn. Okay? So next turn, let's say that was the defensive fire phase. Now I could, in my movement phase, if anything, well, nothing's going to be there, right? Or let's say they were suppressed. They were all gone. I can suppress them again. You definitely don't want to miss. But again, 3 squads guarantees that will be hampered. 3 squads is a guarantee. If you had 2 squads, that's a 10 or less. So that's 1 in 12 it will blaze. Then you're screwed. Or, well, 1 in 12 that it doesn't get suppressed, and then you'd have to roll the spreading fire, which is pretty good for woods. But 3 squads guarantees that that's not going to occur. And if you roll a 8 or less, well, actually less than 3, I guess a 12 is a fail. So if you had the extra half squad, 12, you'd have the minuses to guarantee that it's a hamper. So a less than 3, I'm not sure if that's less than 3 or less than or equal to 3. It might be less than or equal to 3. So you can honestly get rid of all those flames every single turn ad infinitum in that instance. And therefore, you're using the map board edge, which is why I hate scenarios that say, oh, you got to capture, like say this, let's say the woods here were a building. You got to capture this building at the end of the turn. Essentially, it's just a grind fest. You just make it a 3-turn scenarios and start everyone else adjacent. Those are boring ass scenarios. So anyway, use the flames, blazes. If he doesn't start moving fast, and again, that's where you can have some guys on the outside. Now he's got to start moving before those blazes encompass the area. And as soon as this spreads here, any defense here, you just double time. You know, go up here for 2, 3, 4, run along the path, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, and you're past, and you're just defending this. So that might give you the edge you need in getting out of this free and clear. Is it sleazy? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You're not using the blaze to destroy victory condition hexes, this, that, and the other. You're preventing the Germans from getting to its victory objective. Part of the rules, part of the game, learn the snippets. I can guarantee you that maybe 1 out of 100 of those games actually blazed this up. Or guess what? Maybe the flamethrower torched something and caused a blaze to happen, which can happen. So blaze it up, people. Blaze it up. You can do it. Use the wind to your advantage. If you don't have the wind, it'll be a lot more difficult. But the wind makes this real easy to do. You could flame here. This would be a possibility. That way you could burn this building and flame that direction if you want. But there's almost no way that he can stop you from doing this unless he charges. And if he charges, if you anticipate him charging, then you could do something like this. Put the AT gun over here, or the AT gun in the middle. Let's get rid of this stuff. If he knows he has to charge, then you can put the AT gun something like this. Because you don't have any units firing on these guys down here, so he's probably going to use the road. Let him use the road. And he parks his tanks, moves them up close. They're firing your guys, and then you just shoot them in the ass. Risky, but that's how you win games. You know, if it's a dog, you need to think outside the box. You need to think what the scenario gives you, and you need to think outside the box. Is this wholly effective? Have I tried this? Absolutely not. But in theory, it's an option you have. Keep your options open. All right, that's enough of me. I'll have to trim this down. So anyway, always consider defense, what they can do. Consider priorities in your fire attacks. Considering what options you have. And most of all, you have to realize what it takes for both sides to win. Right? You could go after his tanks hard. You could really win by taking 20 victory points away from him. All that does is keep the Germans from being overly ambitious. Is a victory point cap, which are great. I think it's a great equalizer in many scenarios. You just can't, it's just going to throw all my vehicles in your building, whatever. That's a bunch of bullshit. But poorly designed scenarios allow you to do that. So lots of ways. You know, if you don't want this to happen, you could just say, well, Blaze can't leave its hex. You know, if Blaze starts in a building, can't leave the building. By the way, Critical Hit has that in scenario special rules, some of their games. Once you create a Blaze, it can't leave the building. Is that realistic? No, but you don't have to worry about kindling his NA every single scenario. Every single scenario. So, all right, take it for what it's worth. Keep your mind open, ASLers. Keep your nose to the grindstone. When the scenario pops up, this looks like a simple scenario, but it could have a lot of little tidbits. Did Kurt Schilling want you to do this? You know, it's a 75-23 dog if you don't, right? Unless you get lucky or play a really inexperienced player or a guy that makes a lot of mistakes. Either way, you can have an experienced player that makes a lot of mistakes. So regardless of that, if you have to rely upon that, it's either a bad scenario or this is a scenario with a trick. Well, all I'm saying is all my scenario analyses that I do here, keep your mind open, look for the little tricks. Look for the little tricks. Right? If you're the German, you lose your flamethrower in the first shot, gone. You know, some people quit. Oh shit, I can't win now. You're in stone building. I can't do anything about that. Well, that's when you have to look at some other tricks that you have to be up your sleeve. Smoke dischargers, huge. Huge in getting the Germans up there. Maybe that's a counterbalance, right? Maybe that's the idea. Maybe you have to rush. Run your tanks up here, drop smoke. Now it's inundated with smoke. Now the Germans get to move freely. Plenty of ways to counter this. But this makes it a little bit more defensible for the French. They only have 6 guys versus 3 tanks of essentially 8 firepower each. That's not going to hold up very well with an ELR of 2. All right, gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. I've shown you some ASL to pick your brain. Simple scenario. Avoid row houses. Watch for kindling. Watch for wind direction. All that shit's in the scenario for a reason. Now, get your ass out there and go play some ASL.